Matthew 20. For the kingdom of heaven is like. Gosh, how many times did Jesus say that? Here's one of the reasons that he had to say it so often is because the kingdom of heaven is not one-dimensional. It's like a diamond with many facets. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire men to work in his vineyard. We don't do this very much. In Las Vegas, there's a place called Star Nursery. And it's, from my knowledge, it's the only place in Las Vegas you can hire a day laborer. And there are, I've never seen a woman doing it, but there might be. Anyway, men in work clothes ready to go to work to help you with your planting and trimming, and it's mainly maintenance kinds of things. But you just, there's no contract. You just drive over and they'll go with you, follow you, and they work for the wage that you negotiate with them. Well, that was, instead of being the exception, in Jesus' day, that was the rule. It was common. And so, in this story, a landowner goes, he's looking for hired men. In verse 2, he agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. Now, a denarius was the normal accepted wage for a day's labor. So he wasn't, he wasn't offering a bonus, and he wasn't trying to undercut anybody. I mean, this was the normal, accepted, common day wage. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. I've never done vineyard work. My guess is you probably never have either. What I do know, I've been to a few vineyards, and my observation is, if you're going to work in the vineyard, you're going to be in the hot sun, and this is not an easy job. This is manual labor. So, okay, verse 3, about the third hour, well, that would have been, basically, the day was from when the sun came up until when the sun came down. I would guess that the third hour would have been about 9 o'clock. Oh, by the way, they didn't have watches. The best they had was a sundial or, the hourglass. About the third hour, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. Went back to the same place. And he told them, you also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right. So they went. So whatever would be right, well, these first guys were going to give a full day's labor for what was right, a denarius. There's a chance that the guys who, the third hour, around 9 o'clock, the landowner found, they're just hanging out, waiting to be hired. They may have thought, okay, we'll get a little less, but we got nothing without that. So they went. He went out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour and did the same thing. About the 11th hour, you see, we got a Dr. Pepper thing going here, 10, 2, and 4. About the 11th hour, he went out and found still others standing around. By the 11th hour, there was really maybe 1 hour of sunlight. He asked these guys, why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing? Because no one has hired us, they answered. So he said to them, you also go and work in my vineyard. When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first. That was done. Back the wagon up just a teeny bit to realize there was no such thing as an 8-hour work day in Jesus' time. If there was sunlight, it was still the work day. And so these guys would have put in a 12 or 13-hour day, those that had been hired from the beginning. Well, verse 9, the workers who were hired about the 11th hour came and each received a denarius, which would not have been normal. For a guy that was hired at the end of the day to get paid as if they had worked the entire day. This was, in some ways, it didn't make any sense. So when those who were hired first, when they came, who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. These men who were hired last worked only 1 hour, they said. And you've made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day? Seems like a legitimate complaint. Verse 13, but he answered one of them, friend, I'm not being unfair to you. Didn't you agree to work for denarius? The answer to that is yes. Take your pay and go. I want to give the man who was hired last the same as I give you. Don't I have the right to do that? To do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I'm generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last. Does that sound familiar? It should. Because that's how we, pardon me, that's what we looked at last time. Just that sentence, that idea. And so Jesus, now let's step back. A very interesting story would be, I think, in my mind, writing a script for a movie or a play of this narrative would be easy. There's a ton of, well, maybe not a ton, but there's a lot of human emotions involved in this. The emotion of the guys who were hired for, into the day. I think they would have expected to not get a denarius, but they did. That's what emotion would be in that? I think it would be happiness, joy, maybe even gratitude. I hope gratitude. But these guys that have been in for the whole time, I don't want to be harsh toward them, but I think they were maybe, well, they were unhappy. I think resentful maybe. Who did they resent? The landowner. Then, it doesn't talk about their resentment toward guys that had been hired for fewer hours. Oh, okay, all the emotions. So what does this mean for us? Well, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like this. Here's what I think. I have been a Christian since I was a young grade school boy. I've never been perfect. But I truly do not remember a time that I didn't know about God and love Jesus. Honestly. I don't know how long I'm going to live, but however long God gives me, it'll be that way to the end. If my mind, remains. But there's going to be people who, they're on their deathbed and they call out to Jesus. He'll hear them. But what about if they can't be baptized? I don't know. I I don't have to know. I don't get to judge that. I don't need to. But the principle is clear. You can work for your entire lifetime and get no more than the person who worked for an hour. This is a picture of grace. I've talked about it a lot. It's my favorite thing to talk about, really. The three themes of the Bible. Justice, which is getting what I deserve. And if you apply justice into this story, then the wages would have been prorated so that the guys that had been working all day would get a full denarius, and somehow you would create a formula to pay the others who had worked fewer hours. That would be justice. Or would it? No, it wouldn't be justice. Because what the contract was to those who were hired at the beginning of the day, I'll pay you a denarius. And everybody else, apparently, the contract was, I'll pay you what is right. I mean, he fulfilled his contract. Mercy is a second great theme of the Bible. And it says, I don't get what I deserve. And this is not in the sense of withholding good. No, this is withholding bad from me. I'm so thankful for mercy. I confess freely, I am a stupid sheep. I make many wrong choices. And I'm so grateful that God doesn't let all the consequences of all my wrong choices happen. That's mercy. But then grace. And I believe this story is about grace. Grace is me getting what I couldn't deserve. See, these guys who were hired later in the day, right up to like 1 hour before quitting, they couldn't deserve a denarius. Wouldn't have been possible. It wasn't possible. And yet, the landowner paid them that. See, the kingdom of God is about grace. I want to be careful that I am not a resentful guy about those who had joined the family here, had said yes to Jesus in the last hours. I don't want to resent that. First of all, what good is it going to do? And secondly, when I have committed my heart and life to Jesus, His grace is for me, and what He gives to me, I should give freely to others. You know, there are churches who this is how they deal in grace. And they get a lot of rocks thrown at them by legalists. I don't care. Throw your rocks. Hit me with your best shot. I want to be about grace. I would want that for you too. Finished early today. How about that? I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.